here with Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo TV, and I am joined now by NASA astronaut Nicole Stott. It is a pleasure to have you here this morning. Thank you so much for being here. We're, of course, at the 51st Annual Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo. Very first question I want to ask you is, what brings you to Sun and Fun?
Sun and Fun brings me to Sun and Fun. I love it. I feel like I have a little bit of a history here. My dad was here when it first got going back in the 70s, and the fact that it's 51 years, that makes me realize how long I've been enjoying it, everything about it,
It really is a fun spot to be. You're going to enjoy the day here, but thank you so much for sitting down with us to do this quick little interview.
Absolutely.
I have so many questions for you. First off, how did you get involved? When did you know you wanted to be an astronaut?
Well, I think the actual when did I know I wanted, was much later in life, but I really feel like the inspiration for it started at our local airport out at Clearwater Air Park, where my dad was building and flying small airplanes. My mom was taking us as the kids out there, and that's where we hung out. And I just developed this love of flying and ultimately of wanting to know how things fly. And then as I was going, the long story short, going through school, the shuttle program's getting going after I graduated from high school, and I'm getting ready to go off to college. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if you want to know how airplanes fly, why would you not want to know how rocket ships fly? And it just kind of led down this path, in parallel with being old enough to have watched the first moon landings too, and just thinking how extraordinary that is for humans to be able to do that kind of thing. But it was really while I was already working as an engineer out at the Kennedy Space Center on the shuttle program where started to see what astronauts do, which, by the way, 99.9% of the time is not flying in space. It's down here on Earth, and discovered that it was a lot like what I was already doing as an engineer, and then had some people who encouraged me to believe that it wasn't just for other special people to do.
And you applied and
I did.
Got accepted.
I did. And that's the key thing, I think, is I think I would have talked myself out of it, believing that it really is this special thing that other people get to do. Why me? And thankfully, no one ever told me I couldn't do this. I really appreciate that, but it just seems so out there. And very grateful for the people that just did that, encouraged me to pick up the pen.
And so that's what your message is now, is just to apply, go for it, do it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I encourage kids especially to be curious and to pay attention to what they're curious about, if it's flying or whatever it might be, and how much that opens up the opportunity for you to meet people that, if you like flying, you come to someplace like Sun and Fun, right? And you meet people who are excited about these kinds of things, and that opens up these other opportunities. And it's really amazing how the path can grow just from that curiosity. So
talk to us now about actually being an astronaut, right? What is that feeling like? Walk through the training, because obviously, you went for the mission, but the training begins long before you actually go to space.
Yeah, most of what you're doing is training in one way or another. I was selected in the year 2000, I know, a long time ago, and then my first flight was in 2009. So that's a long time between being selected as an astronaut and training just going through what we call our astronaut candidate or ASCAN training. That just prepares you to be, kind of have the hands waved over you to say, yes, thou shalt be able to get assigned to a flight someday. And then it's just a mix of everything from, how do you do a spacewalk, getting in that big 300-pound white suit into a pool and, simulating a spacewalk. How do you fly the robotic arm, that big white crane? That's like a big video game. All the science, all the systems of the space shuttle and the space station at that time for me. And a lot of international travel, because our space station is an international one, over 15 countries involved, and we got to get over there to our partners as well.
Now, all of the astronauts on board your mission, do you guys train in all of the same ways, or do you focus on something a little bit different?
Well, we all do some common things, like whatever the science or the mission objectives are going to be, we're all involved with all of that. But each of us will have different assignments. And, on my first flight, I got to do a spacewalk, so I had some really focused spacewalk training. I was the lead for the robotics operations, so I had a lot of focused, how do you fly that robotic arm training. But all of us are together doing the system-related stuff. And since we're at an air show and out here in Lakeland, it's like, one of the coolest things we get to do is fly in the little T-38 trainer jets. Yeah. And I can tell you, as a person who loves flying, even if you're in the backseat of that thing, it's impressive.
So what was that like? Talk to us about being in the jet. What did they put you through for that kind of training? What did that prepare you for the mission?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I think the one thing that people don't necessarily, they're always thinking about kind of the adventure-y side of being an astronaut, and imagine that what we're doing in that T-38 jet, which we do, is, you know, the aerobatics and learning how to kind of understand what your body's going to go through in some pretty, you know, extreme situations. But for the most part, it's about how do you work as a crew. You know, I'm in the back seat. My front seater, who is the pilot, a lot of times was a military jet flyer who never had to have somebody in a back seat, who was used to flying by themselves. So now how does that dynamic work with somebody who's used to controlling everything, and the dynamic of having somebody in the backseat who may not ever have been in an airplane before, you know? And I was fortunate to have been in airplanes before, so it was like, oh my gosh, just let me fly the thing.
Did you get to?
And I did get to.
Oh, good.
The one rule was, as backseaters, if you weren't qualified, certified in the airplane, you just couldn't take off and land.
Okay.
But basically, 500 feet both ways, it was hands-on.
So you had fun with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to me about Aquarius, because I'm a scuba diver. I've known about Aquarius for a long time, and you got to spend quite a bit of time in there.
Yeah, we did. I think the longest saturation dive mission on Aquarius, which just means we were down at a depth where our body's got all that nitrogen in it, and you just can't swim safely to the surface. So amazing undersea habitat, just off the coast of Key Largo, the only one in the world like it. And it sits at 60 feet, you know, on the ocean floor, and it is absolutely the best analog to what it's like to live and work in space.
Really?
And a big part of that is it is a real extreme environment, right? You're not going down and doing a dive and then coming back up every 45 minutes or whatever. You're going down and then you're staying there. And you can't swim to the surface because of the condition that your body is in. So just like in space, where you can't just hop in your spaceship anytime if something goes wrong and come home, you have to make sure your crew is all safe and in a good configuration. You have to make sure your vehicle's in a good configuration before you can even think about coming to the surface. And then we're doing all kinds of the same kind of science and stuff that you would do. You're living in a relatively confined space, but man, you are wrapped, the planet is just wrapped around you, and it's extraordinary. We joke that we get to go live and work in inner space to learn to live and work in outer space.
Oh, that's a wonderful saying there. All right, so talk to us about the missions. What was some of the mission-specific activities that you had to do on each of the times that you were in space?
So I flew twice. My first flight was considered a long-duration mission, and my second was a short-duration mission. On the first one, I flew up. Man, that was back in 2009. I flew up on the Space Shuttle Discovery, and then I was dropped off and spent a little over 3 months on the space station with the crews there, and then came home on Atlantis. And during that time, we had some assembly stuff we were doing on the station, so adding some things to the station that weren't there before to complete the construction, and pulling some science equipment off, and replacing ammonia tanks and things like that. And then every day is a mix of some kind of science and maintenance and all of that that's happening, and you know, flying the robotic arm to grab this vehicle, this cargo vehicle that was coming at us, and just really cool work with people from all over the world, you know, living as one crew on this machine in space, you know, that we managed to do that peacefully, successfully for over 25 years now, and where everything up there is ultimately about improving life on Earth. And I think that was probably, you know, when I think back on it, the lessons of being in that place, it's, wow, I want people to know that. I want them to know about this partnership that we have in this place that's all about improving life for us here. And, you know, long rambly way to get to the second flight, which was about a year and a half later. It was in 2011, the final flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery. And we went back to the station. Again, we had some assembly and maintenance tasks to do. And that was about 2 weeks. And I can tell you it wasn't long enough. We're doing really well. They've been following instructions exceptionally well today as I boss them around. Literally had to pull my clawing hands off the hatch to get me back in to go. Yeah.
So you miss it?
I do. You know, it's one of those, I can't imagine going to that place, experiencing something like that, and not feeling like you should or would want to go back. And there is something pretty extraordinary about it, and I highly recommend it if you get the chance, for sure. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I grew up staring at the moon. I used to tell my mom that the moon needs cleaned. It's dirty, Mom. And I've always wanted to be an astronaut.
Take me with you. They will need control of all the dust and stuff when they come in.
When they select me, I say, I got one person to come with me.
Call me. Yeah.
I will. And I love that you're local as well. I do have a question about your Mach 25 patch. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, so on the shuttle, when we are accelerating and even at the point where we're decelerating too to come back and land, we exceed the 25 times the speed of sound. And so hence the Mach 25, which is kind of cool.
That's very cool.
And at any point we're traveling around the planet at 17,500 miles an hour, about 5 miles a second, which is a 90-minute lap around the Earth, which is pretty
What do you
cool.
remember most from looking out the window and looking back at Earth?
Oh my gosh, it is stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this visual like I thought I had prepared for through all the pictures and videos that are really quite good. But I think it's like anything. It's like getting in the back of an airplane and flying versus, watching it. You can get a really good sense from watching it, but you get in the back and it's just all this multi-sensory kind of thing going on. And the same thing is true looking back at Earth. But I mean, the reality check of it, this beautiful just reminder that we live on a planet. Like, holy moly, we're sitting right now on a planet, right? Spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and yet, in space. And how we're all Earthlings, only border that matters, that thin blue line of atmosphere, which is so crystal clear, like this thin blanket veil wrapping around us. And how important it is for us to behave like crewmates and not passengers on our planetary spaceship too, right?
That's amazing. Going back to being an astronaut and a scuba diver, as a scuba diver, curious, and someone who wants to be an astronaut, how different is it from being in space to being underwater in neutrally buoyant atmosphere there?
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
Right? But I think scuba diving and just really, you can even get into a pool and get kind of in the deep end and in the, not all the way down and not at the top. And just if you can really chill and relax and just let your body float and just imagine that being like the perpetual, like that's just what you're in and every way you're going to move is going to be through this floating with no resistance on you, no drag, that's what it's like. And scuba diving to me, if you can really get into the zen of it and you can pay attention enough to what your instructors and all the people who really know how to dive, I'm not necessarily one of those, will tell you about being in it and getting neutrally buoyant. Oh my gosh, it's probably the closest you can get.
Okay, that's good to know. Hopefully I do get to space one day, but
yes,
that's good to know.
Like I said.
I call you. Okay, so now, post NASA astronaut, being in space 2 times, where do you go from there? You do a ton of stuff now. You're super active in the Tampa Bay community.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about post NASA astronaut life.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision to make to be a post NASA astronaut too. Especially when you were in line to fly again. But I was feeling this pull of how do I share the experience, right? And also, my son was 7 when I flew the first time. He was about to start middle school. I was like, man, there were things we needed to be doing with, kind of the family side of stuff too. And it was the right decision. But I think when you make that decision, you want to know that, okay, how am I going to take all this incredible experience and carry it forward? Because I've had the way I've had that question asked before is, oh, you've done the astronaut, how could anything be better than that? What are you going to do now that could possibly? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should just.
Well, yeah.
It's like, aren't you just supposed to take what you've done and then apply it to something else, like going forward? And so I wanted to do that. I wanted people to understand what we're doing in space. That is all about improving life on Earth. I wanted people to understand our planetary home as a planet and the role we have in it. And so that's been the underlying mission in all of it. Whether it's been writing a book or creating art, and I was blessed to be able to paint a watercolor in space, and that, I just kept, when I was thinking about retiring, I kept reflecting on that experience, that very human, doing human spaceflight experience in space, and art was the way I wanted to share it. And so whether I'm talking to you, and my friend Liam, who's got his beautiful artistic airplane, the Mooney Anomaly out there, to get people inspired about flying and the science behind it and exploration, all of that, I want to do that same kind of thing. And it's coming through my own artwork, it's coming through speaking, through book, through foundations, and work with kids all over the world. very fortunate.
And tell us a little bit about your book. How did you write it? What is it about, and how can people purchase it?
Yeah, at all your online whatevers, the bookstores, you can get it. And it's called Back to Earth, What Life in Space Taught Me About Our Home Planet and Our Mission to Protect It. And what I wanted to do, I struggled a little bit with the book writing thing, because I never wanted to write the Here's How Nikki Became an Astronaut book. Maybe as a kid's book somewhere along the way. But I really felt like it was important to share the ways that we've somehow managed to do this incredible work on this machine. I keep saying it, this machine in space, this machine that we've built to mimic as best we can what Earth does for us naturally, right? Where every morning these people representing 15 different countries wake up, and the first thing we do is we check how much carbon dioxide's in our atmosphere, how much clean drinking water we have, integrity of our thin metal hull, and on the health and well-being of all of us. And you have to do that before you can even start to do the science in that place, right? And so we've managed to do that, and I think we need to share that with everyone. And everything about how we've done that on this place in space and with the teams on the ground that are supporting us. My friend Carl is here. I'm kind of looking at him. I'm like, there are thousands of people down here on Earth who have just come together for this greater mission to do good stuff in space. I want people to know about that. And so that's what the book's about. There's certainly some, stories of flying for sure, and diving, and how those things that we are curious about, influence the choices we make too along the way. But I want people to know about what we're doing in space every day.
Incredible mission statement. I think that is so important, what we do up there. I don't think many people really understand what we do up there. I say we because I hope to be up there.
No, it's a collective,
It really is to benefit everyone on Earth.
Yeah.
I think that people think that we go up there and why are we in space? They're just up there. They're just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But it's really not. Everything that, 95% of what we do up there is to benefit us back on Earth.
Yeah, I would argue all of it. In one way or another is really and truly, and I think that, and then there's some subset of it that's allowing us to explore further off the planet, right?
That was
and it's
5%,
exactly, and it, but there's this dual thing happening with all of it. And that's whether that's the way the station is built. Best example of living off the grid you can find is that International Space Station, or the science that we're doing, or the international partnerships we've had to develop to make that happen. And our friend Kevin Ford, one of fellow astronaut colleague, he's the one who came up with the motto for the space station that the NASA just latched onto because it was so good. It's called Off the Earth, for the Earth. And I think that speaks so beautifully to what we're doing there. And so I'm so thankful, grateful to you guys for letting me ramble here, is because I think it really is important for us to understand what's happening. It's embedded in every aspect of our lives in a very positive way.
I appreciate you spreading that message. Is there anything else that you would like to add in this interview?
No, I just want, buy the book. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Do that. If you haven't ever come out to Sun and Fun, come out to Sun and Fun. And even when the flying's not going on, there's incredible stuff happening here. At the Aerospace Academy, at the museum, the Hall of Fame, all of it. The grounds are, and it's open for people to come and visit.
The other 51 weeks of the year.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the aviation inspiration, whether you end up wanting to be a pilot or not, I think it's just one of those things that helps you figure out what you love.
It is. I hope you enjoyed that interview with astronaut Nicole Stott. If you have any other questions or want to find her, you can find her information at the bottom of the screen. Amanda Holly for Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo TV.